So think about this. When someone is in the state's care, in their custody, who's really responsible for keeping them safe? It's a huge question. Today, we're digging into a really powerful court ruling out of Uruguay that gives a very clear and very costly answer.
And where are we getting this from? Well, our source is this official ruling, straight from Uruguay's Court of Appeals. And that seal you see, it's not just some fancy stamp. It represents the full weight and authority of a decision that really changes the game for state accountability.
At the end of the day, this isn't just a bunch of legal jargon. At its core, it's a deeply human story. It's about a brutal prison riot, a life that was lost in an absolutely horrific way, and a family's fight to get some answers.
All right, so let's rewind and start at the very beginning, with the event that kicked this whole thing off. We're going back to September 8th, 2016.
The scene is Uruguay's Car prison. And inside, what starts as a disturbance? Well, it explodes into a full-on violent riot. The authorities are losing control, and they're losing it fast.
And this is where we see the first major breakdown. A group of inmates from cell number 6, they actually managed to break the lock on their own cell. So now they're out, they're in the cell block, and they've got a specific mission. And this is the part that's just chilling. They didn't just get out. They armed themselves with what are called cortes carcelarios, basically prison-made shanks, and they were carrying burning pieces of foam they'd ripped from their mattresses as weapons. I mean, just imagine that scene. And all those weapons? They weren't random. They had a target. They stormed cell number 8, trapping everyone inside. And one of the men in that cell was Miguel Ángel Rey Zabalos.
So after this absolute horror, Miguel's family, they just refused to let his death be another statistic. They did something incredibly brave. They decided to take on the entire state. So what did they do? They sued the Ministry of the Interior. That's the government department running the prisons. And their argument was really straightforward and powerful. The state was supposed to protect Miguel, and it didn't. And get this, they actually won. The first court that heard the case sided with the family. They said yes, the state was responsible, and they awarded money to Miguel's parents and his 4 siblings. But the story was far from over.
But here's the twist. The state, instead of just accepting the ruling, decided to fight it. They appealed the decision, which meant the family's battle for justice was now heading to an even higher court. So this is the core of the legal fight right here. On one side, you have the family saying, look, this was a clear failure of service. But on the other side, you have the state, and they're not just denying it. They're calling the family's claim for compensation exaggerated and absurd.
And the state's argument, it got really personal, and frankly, pretty ugly. They actually argued that because the family didn't visit Miguel all the time in prison, they were distanced from him. They tried to reduce their relationship to just blood ties, essentially trying to invalidate their grief.
Okay, so all of this leads us to the big moment, the final judgment from the Court of Appeals. The judges had to sift through all of this and answer that one huge question. Was the state responsible or not? And really, the whole case comes down to this one legal idea, falta de servicio, or failure of service. It's a simple question, right? Did the government fail to do its job? And did that failure cause harm? In this case, the job was pretty clear. Keep the people in your prison safe. So the court just looked at the basic facts. Wait a minute, how did inmates get weapons? How did they break out of a locked cell? How were they able to pull off an organized attack on another cell? I mean, every single one of those questions points to the same thing, a total breakdown of security. And the court's conclusion? It was so simple and so powerful. Just 4 words in Spanish. El servicio funcionó mal. The service functioned poorly. Boom, no room for doubt. The state had failed, period.
Okay, so the court has said, yes, the state is responsible. That leaves one big thing to sort out, the money, the compensation. And this is always one of the hardest things for a court to do, right? How do you possibly put a price on a lost life? First things first, the court took that awful argument from the state about the family being distanced and just threw it out completely. The judges made it crystal clear. A family bond is deeper than how often you can make it for a prison visit. It's a bond that's always there. All right, now here is where this story takes a really fascinating turn.
Right there in the ruling, the court says its plan is to slightly reduce the amount of money from the first trial. They said they needed to follow precedent from other cases.
A slight reduction. That's what they said. But what happens when we actually run the numbers? Let's check their math, shall we? Okay, so just look at this. The first award was a total of $57,000. But the final award from the appeals court, the one that was supposed to be a reduction, was actually $80,000. They awarded $25,000 to each parent and $7,500 to each sibling. When you add it all up, it's way more. It's just this incredible little twist hidden right there in the court documents.
So in the end, this whole case forces us to confront a really big question. It hammers home the point that the state has a fundamental duty to protect people in its custody. But when that duty is so tragically broken, it really makes you wonder, what is the real price of justice? And can any amount of money ever truly make a family whole again?